It is just crazy. It's a crazy
Right.
concept that people can't just say, I'm too unskilled, I'm not good at this job, that is why I'm a low performer, that's why you want to fire me, and I'm not going to even take your package. You're paying me to leave because I'm not going to find another job. It's just a crazy concept. I mean, Americans listening to this podcast will be cringing at this, but in Europe, that is a reality. And in some countries, especially in countries like Germany, in Spain, we also have a very, very strong worker protection culture that just prevents you from getting rid of these people that are adding no value. And sometimes you're paying these people tens or even hundreds of thousands of euros to just add no value to the organization.
Yeah, no, it's actually crazy, but I guess from an employer perspective, you hire 200 people, you get two, three bad apples. It's not that bad if everybody else is great. But yeah, what do you do if you can't get rid of them is then the real question, because like you said, you don't want a bad apple, starts influencing the batch. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those really difficult questions because it's not so straightforward in terms of how you go about it with regulation and everything. And there's always a social agenda as well, right? So, like in terms of regardless of your political views, but if somebody is that unskilled, are you literally gonna stick them on the streets, sort of thing, right? I mean, of course, they might, because let's say they have 1 year left, 2 years left on their contract till retirement. Maybe, you might, from that perspective, take a little bit more of a social, empathetic perspective if
Right.
you're
So I
doing the
understand.
if you're doing this at scale, right? Thousands of people, despite from a pure rational, risk neutral sort of logical perspective, it's the right thing to do.
I understand the empathy point. My brutally honest answer is yes, you put those people on the street because it's not the company that needs to pay for those people not being unskilled. That's why you have a government, right? And that's why the government should be the one taking care of making sure that that person is being properly upskilled, right? And running those initiatives. But the government is just too inefficient to do that, at least in Europe. But it's just crazy that they just say, well, then you can't fire it. Then again, it's the same. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. You're just putting the burden on the company. If the company cannot get, like, I've seen these cases, Dan. If the company cannot get rid of these people that are just not adding any value, then the company will become uncompetitive. We, as a country, continent, as a European Union, we just become uncompetitive to other companies from places like the US that they can make sure that they can apply a high performance culture. And in the worst cases, these companies will go under and they will take the jobs not only for themselves, but they will also with them take the jobs for the people that were adding value as well. So
No,
it's yeah, it's very
yeah,
it's complicated.
I agree. I think it's more from the devil's advocate perspective of just really, like you said, because of the realities of how Europe works, is you do realize what the alternative is quite a big contrast. But you're right, and I think like the CFO of my company says it all the time. He sees performance as care in the sense of financial performance. If we as a company do well, everybody does well, right? Vidya, has performed extremely well with a very high performance culture. The stock price has gone through the roof. 1 in 20, you know, individuals who are employed there are multimillionaires. 1 in 3 have a value of more than 20 million in stock options. So that's a good example of just if the company does well from a financial perspective, those people will also get their reward. Of course, that's a quite extreme example, but it's your livelihood. It's making sure that you, as a company, are competitive. That should then be reflected in your reward as well. So I think that's fundamentally a lot of the, good things about, those competition aspects. And like you said, right, if you do remove that workforce, you could pay even those high performers more. you can have more of an extreme in terms of your overall compensation structure, which can drive talent and move you forward because you actually attract and retain those top performers rather than them leaving because you're non-competitive from a compensation perspective.